Every week on the Totally Radvertising podcast, we meet with founders, CEOs, writers, and directors to talk about the creative choices that have made the biggest impact on their brands. And this isn't just any podcast because
it's Totally Radvertising.
I'm Dallin.
And I'm Damian Dayton.
It's totally rad. It's totally radvertising.
Hi, and welcome to the Totally Radvertising podcast. I'm your host, Damian Dayton, with my co-host, Dallin.
Hey, everybody.
And we're here with entrepreneur, designer, agency owner, Trevor Crump. We could be viewed as competitors, but I hope that he considers me a peer, and we just love learning from each other. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. One, my view on competitors is very different than everyone else. Like, there's just so much work and business out there that, like, to truly view people as competitors is just, it's almost like, narcissistic in a way. Like, hey, I'm the only one who can
There will always be thousands of advertisers, and we're also doing things in different ways and different types of clients.
Yeah.
And it's more likely that we'll have a long-standing friendship than a lot of our clients that will come in and out of our life
for
in 4 years. So
for sure.
So that's going to be a good segue into this commercial. We'll see how another brand is trying to get their name out there. I saw it because you shared it on LinkedIn. You're a great follow Trevor Crump on LinkedIn and Instagram, a bunch of other places.
Yeah.
But we'll cut away to it. But we'll watch. Have you seen it?
I watched it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to cut away now and we'll show it to who's at home.
Before moving on to the next project.
My lip color go on.
Hey!
Don't ever talk to me again. I don't want.
And we're back.
Yep.
So I like to ask like 4 basic questions to everybody. Okay. So I'm going to tell you what all the questions are so we don't get too. First is like, do you like it? What was the product? What was the brand? And how did it, and what made them different than other brands?
Yeah.
So let's talk about the most fun one first. Like,
okay.
Did you like it?
Did you like it?
Yeah. I love this ad. Like, I really personally loved it. I have some critiques on it, but I loved it, especially because of the stage of life as a dad I am with. I have an 11-year-old girl.
11-year-old girl.
Right? And so, like, that ad...
Does she have a phone yet? Or
she does not. She has a Gab watch.
Gab watch.
We're big Gab people.
Yeah, totally.
But I don't know. That girl's probably, what, 12?
Yeah,
I would
she's
think.
in that. She's in that.
Yeah, I mean, so it struck such a chord, and it was like I had a visceral negative reaction. Like, I hated watching that video for the first, literally the first, I think it's a 60-second ad.
Yeah.
For the first 50 seconds, like, it was really painful to watch.
Yeah.
My boy's 9, so he's not, but I felt that ad for him, and I felt it for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. For everyone. Yeah.
I felt like I am, and there's a couple moments distinctly, like when she's under the covers or when you see like her mom trying to pull the phone from her hand.
Yeah.
Like that definitely felt like she was holding on for dear life. Like it's not just like, I want this, like I need this. And like,
you're right though. As a parent, there's that immediate, I also have a 9-year-old son. So we kind of have kids all in the same, you feel it as a parent and then you go, wait a minute, that's kind of like me. I'm on my phone a lot too, right?
Yeah.
And you realize how much time you spend on it, right?
100%.
Yeah. So I loved it in the emotional connection.
And I think like a great ad to me can give you some sort of visceral emotional You know, I remember when I was a kid, it was before I could spend the money on a car, but I remember when I was a kid, there was a Subaru commercial that came out, and it was like a couple walking their dog, and they were walking past a tragic like car accident, and it was like a Forester that was all mangled, and they were like, oh my gosh, you know, and then somebody else who was walking the other way, as they passed them, they said they lived. And I remember I was like, that is the most powerful ad I've ever seen in my entire life. You know, like, they're like, these Subaru style cars, your Toyotas, your Hondas, like I know they all have their own differences, but they're all the same, you know, but like you just hit on this emotion of like
the safety
component. And you're like,
what really matters.
Okay, cool. If I am talking about roughly the same price points and I'm getting a car for my kid, am I going to buy the Forester? Am I going to buy the Corolla? You know?
Yeah.
I think I'm going down the Forester route, right? Like that's like, once again, I wasn't the target market at the time. It was a TV commercial.
Could be a parent.
Yeah.
They feel that pain more.
Yeah. But I love that ad. Like that ad, you know, we're already Gab people. We're already like, we're in like that conversation. Half of my daughter's friends have cell phones.
But we actually did the Kickstarter video for Gab.
Did you?
Yeah. And we did a couple of their early commercials. Todd, who's in their video team, directs a lot of our commercials.
Cool.
We're early on that, but we've also helped with a couple of their companies like Web Safety that I've gone deep in that research. I believe it's so important.
Yeah.
Like that thing that they're talking about. But I do want to take a moment and point out, like, this is a beautiful piece of art. And I think advertising can be art. Really, when at its best. And it makes us think about the world differently. And that's great and that beautiful. But I think the critique part of this, we wouldn't be talking about the commercial if it wasn't great. But the critique part was, what was the product? What was the brand? So I always ask people this after the Super Bowl. It's like, oh, I love this commercial. What was the product? What was the brand?
Sure.
Right.
I remember it was a bike. Do you remember the brand?
No.
I remember it just because I did a piece of content around it. I don't know if I would. So I'm kind of a little biased. It's Sirocco.
Yeah.
Right? But I don't know.
And I've never heard of them before, so I think they get added points because they did, this is
made you stop
an
and
early
watch
swing out of the gate.
Yeah.
And I think that's when you definitely have to go big when you want to get noticed. And so it at least got the impression with me, right? But I had to go back to look at. I watched a couple times and I was like, wait, what was that? And then before the meeting, I'm like, I better go look so I can remember the brand Sirocco. And I was like, how can they have handled that differently and not touch that beautiful thing that they did, you know? And so as I was thinking about, and that's why I love, like, I offer this critique, like, with so much reverence and love for what they've done. But I also like, I want advertisers and brands like that to be more successful.
Yeah.
I think one of the things is they had mounted their camera to the phone. So it's always the same angle and it's always the same distance from her face and it's always locked on her face. And the artist in me wants to keep that consistent throughout.
Sure.
How great would have been the moment she's on the phone, the camera starts drifting away.
She's riding the bike or something.
The world, on the bike, as she's on the bike, and it's no longer locked to her. It starts locked to her face, but the world gets bigger.
That would have been awesome.
Yeah.
The world gets better. I get to see the bike, which is like the brand, but then like emotionally, can you think of the performance things that are also going to creatively help that commercial feel like it's not just the smile on her face.
Yeah.
The world's getting bigger. I'm seeing other people. I'm seeing what she's doing because I couldn't, with that angle, I couldn't see the bike. And so it doesn't give me the chance to see the bike till the end.
Agreed.
And is there something where I could have seen the name of the bike at that moment?
We should pull up their ads library and see, because it could be a really good opportunity for them to have that asset. It gets you to have that
Tons of
emotional
people
connection.
are talking about it because you are and other people have.
Yeah. There's a lot
And
of
then
people who, if
you
you type it in,
Yeah, then you run other ads that immediately connect to that first one and then talk more about the product.
Totally.
So I'd be interested to see the rest of their funnel.
I think another addition that I thought of that could be that way, because I'm not the artist the way you are from like, so I didn't think about like everything had to be from that point of view, but something I thought of that could have been a little bit cooler or maybe something that would help you remember the bike is how often could you have in the background had a bike or something like that. That
Which
was
is
just
sitting there.
was just sitting there, right? Yeah, it was it was nothing more than something that
Collecting dust,
subconsciously
yeah.
you might have noticed.
And you're just like yearning for
Exactly, right? So every couple scenes, because that goes on for a long time,
Yeah.
you see this, and it could be not in focus, right? It might be out of focus, but you could tell that it was a bike. I thought that was a way they could have done that to help you
You
understand.
can do some
the
things
bike
with it
more.
because they have a red branded color on
Yep.
that bike.
Yep.
And if they had done some touches with that color, I think would help
100%.
have some brand connection. Now, one of the things I do also point out on TikTok, it's not the case. But if that's a Facebook ad, the brand is always there. And that's one of the things I tell our clients a lot. Like, you don't have to worry about it as much because the brand's there, your
Right above
copy,
the
your
ad.
headline.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, it's very true.
So that usually carries. But if you see it on TikTok, I think that's one thing to be aware of, though, is you're creating for different
Platforms,
Like
yeah.
platforms that are like little subtle shifts really matter. We notice that sound doesn't make a difference on your hook at Facebook at all. Totally makes a difference on your YouTube.
Yeah.
So
And TikTok.
Yeah, and TikTok. Yeah, because it starts with the sound.
Yep.
And people on Facebook are at work and they've got the sound
Yeah,
off.
it's oftentimes muted.
Or-
yeah.
So yeah, I like to think like how could they have added that in, but I think it might be a second funnel piece like
Yeah.
dangers of cell phone usage, blah, 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 dangers of bike, a skinned knee.
Yeah.
Well, and-
Like
yeah.
and embracing like there's still dangers here.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'll take a broken bone
For sure.
over
An addiction to
wreck my
pornography.
life.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think to tell both of your points, I feel like it was more of an ad for like put your phone down and go do something.
Sure,
Not
yeah.
necessarily here's why you should pick up a bike.
Yeah.
Our bike.
Yeah.
Right. So if they could have tied it into why go on a bike instead of just why put your phone down and go
Yeah, yeah.
outside
Yeah.
and touch grass, right?
Yeah.
It really felt like an ad for that instead of for one specific type of vehicle to go do
Yeah.
that. You know?
Yeah, I don't
Which is
disagree.
why
Yeah.
I have kind of an issue with like spec ads, like the ad school spec ads. It's like, yeah, you're learning to create short films that are memorable, but why even create an ad if you're so detached from the unique? And this is the hardest part that I can't solve for this ad. Once I finally know the name, I still don't know anything that makes that bike any different
Sure.
than anybody else.
Yep.
And I could have taken that same ad and slapped I could have made a burger. I could have made that a McDonald's ad,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
Put down
Go to
the phone
McDonald's.
and
Yeah.
we're walking into
Right,
McDonald's
exactly.
and
Yeah, yeah.
laughing, eating
Yeah.
hamburgers, right?
Totally.
Yeah, yeah.
And all of our conversation when we're talking about what we loved about it had nothing to do with the product.
Yeah.
brand.
Yeah, very
And
true.
so it was like, to some extent, that agency, I can tell that was an agency ad. It
Sure.
wasn't done in-house.
Yeah.
High concept. That agency did it for themselves.
Yeah.
And I still think it's put good into the world.
Yeah.
But I think they underserved their client by not saying, what extra work do we have to do so the water makes that, at least so people are talking about our brand.
Yep. Yeah.
And can we do something with wordplay? Can we do
Yeah.
something with color? Can we do something with brand?
Yeah.
Some breadcrumb. Give the people that love this something so they can do more than just critique it. That
Yeah,
they can,
yeah.
that will drive them, bring them in.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Yeah, I agree.
But I always think that there's so much I can learn from people that are doing great things. You come up through a marketing world, but you also, and you have a lot of academic background there. But the other thing that I respect about you a lot is a lot of marketers have put all their entrepreneurial energy into their agency, but you've also have it into your own brands.
Totally. Yeah, yeah.
Not only consumer brands, but also SaaS.
Yeah.
And also, I think there's something about, I respect an agency owner that has their consumer brands because they're drinking their own Kool-Aid.
Totally. Yeah, yeah, for
You know?
sure. Yeah.
So our big question that we like to start out, one of the big differences, I think you guys at Bestie, at your agency, really data-driven performance, a really great performance team over there.
Yep.
And that's at least how you started, but you also create a lot of assets.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think we started the other way.
Sure.
We started with creative assets and then have been getting into more performance stuff lately.
Totally.
We do like to ask people, over your career, what are some of the best performing creative assets that you've used, and why do you suppose those perform so well?
You want like a specific,
a specific
this
video?
ad did
Yeah.
something really cool.
Yeah. Something that you've run and you were like, oh, I didn't expect that.
Something at
Or
Vaughn or any.
Yeah,
Vaughn or Asher
one
or-
one of my favorite pieces of creative that we ever did. It's a fun story. So we it was actually one of the things that led us into our idea of starting Bestie AI, which is the post-purchase stuff. But when I was the CMO over at Fawn, Fawn Design, for those of you who don't know who they are, Fawn Design, Jenny Wecker was the pioneer of the diaper bag that didn't look like a diaper bag for moms. So any other diaper bag that looks just like a cool, aesthetic, almost piece of fashion, she pioneered it 100%. That's fact, right? She did that, okay? And what happened in the early stages is it just sold like hotcakes because no one had seen anything else like it. At the time, if I remember right, because I remember when I was first having kids, it was Petunia Pickle Bottom. Does that sound familiar to you guys?
Yeah.
It doesn't, but that sounds like a very...
Yeah, and it was very fluffy, right? Like very frilly, very fluffy. It was almost more so designed for the kid than it was the mom. And so Fawn Design created this, like I said, this aesthetically pleasing bag. And the photo of that alone sold the bags. You didn't really have to get creative with advertising because it was just new, right? And she just blew up, like instantaneously blew up, okay? And then when I came on, sales were starting to flatline a little bit. Like, hey, we've had 50%, 100%, 400% year over year growth. And now all of a sudden we're looking like we might not grow this year. What is going on? And that was originally why they had brought me in. And so we had fixed some stuff internally that started to grow and scale the business. And so the year they were supposed to be down, they were up 15% instead of down 5%. So I was like, okay, cool. That's a win. Then after we had everything under control, we were like, we're not winning anymore the way that we would like. We're still like one of the top dogs in the space, but how do we win? And so we started to, we just got this idea to say, hey, what if we I was noticing that our order thank you email was the most opened email we ever sent, which makes sense. But in my mind, I had never really put that together. It had like a 60, 70% open rate and like a 50% click-through rate. And it's like, whoa, those numbers are crazy, right? Before iOS email privacy stuff, you're talking 15, 20% open rates, and you're talking 1 to 3% click-through rates, right, on these emails. And so I'm like, we're wasting this email to just say, thank you, here's your order number, essentially. What if we put an ad in there and we said, hey, get 20% off your next order if you take this 3-question survey? You know, it's just something like that. Like maybe we'll grow some returning customers and let's just get some data and some feedback. And we asked one of the questions, which was, what motivated you to purchase from Fawn Design today? Expecting to get, I love the design, I love the aesthetic, I love the blah, 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 blah. Because that is what we had been utilizing. Our whole marketing strategy, our whole creative strategy was around that. We'd been spending tens of thousands of dollars on that message. And very little people said that it had anything to do with the aesthetic, because that was table stakes now at that time, right? And what everyone was saying was, we love how easy your bag is to clean. And what was different about the Fawn bag that was different than any other bag is the interior was a faux leather versus a nylon. So like you spill breast milk in nylon, that's disgusting. It's soaking in, right? A sucker, applesauce, whatever it might, you spill anything in nylon and it's there for life, right?
Yeah.
But on faux leather, you can wipe it up. Now, the downfall of it was it made our bag a pound heavier, which it doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're your mom and you've got all this stuff on your back and you're carrying 2 kids, like that was a trade-off that we just decided to do. So it was how easy it was to clean. You could literally like pull out the interior and spray it down and you were good. And so we got this idea at the time. We were like really like budget conscious. We couldn't hire creatively. I remember talking about it. In fact, I can't hire creatively. Yeah, so I get it. I remember talking about it. And so we had just brought on a new like a designer whose parents were like way into production and film. So they had the red cameras. They had everything, you know. And so we're like, hey, we have this idea. Like, what if we create this campaign that's like called "Don't Cry Over Spilled Milk"? You know, like it's a saying. Like, what if we do something like that? And we just create 4 or 5 different gnarly hooks, and we showcase. The only thing we're showcasing is how easy it is to clean this diaper bag. And so we got these cameras. We were all amateur directors. We had never done anything like this before. Rebecca, who was our junior creative designer, she was leading this just based off of like historical help from her parents. And we got 3 or 4 kids, and we just made a bunch of spaghetti, and we had them all just throwing spaghetti at the diaper bag. So that was like the opening hook, was just the beautiful diaper bag sitting in a very aesthetically pleasing, because that was our name of the game. It was like,
so beautiful.
We spent $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 going to Europe just to get aesthetically pleasing shots. That was who we were,
Right.
But instead, we're in this kitchen. It's got the beautifully aesthetic look, and all of a sudden you just see spaghetti just like hitting it, rallying it, and then there was a bunch of other things that happened that I can't totally remember, but the whole thought was like, hey, don't cry over spilled milk. Like, this is the easiest cleaning bag, and that ad alone increased our link click-through rate. We were averaging probably like 1.5-ish%. We were at like 4.5% with that ad. Hook rates on that thing.
Yeah.
Your average hook rate. I mean, you guys probably have some of these numbers, but in e-com, average hook rates, 15, 20%. These ones were 40%. Like watch through was like 35%. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah.
And not only that, because sometimes those numbers can be vanity metrics. It converted big time.
I feel like that probably also got Lyndon Lazarus his start, because he did start his TikTok channel by eating spaghetti off of his Tesla seats.
Were the inspiration.
He probably saw those ads.
Yeah, 100% the inspiration.
Shout out to
for
London.
Laz. Yeah. But yeah, it was awesome. It was so cool. It was really cool to see. It was cool just to take data from your customers.
Yeah.
And then turn it into reality. Had we worked with I'm sure creatively, we could have made it so much better. But that was a really cool thing to see come to life. We spent a lot of money. It made us a lot more money, sold a lot more bags than any ad. Guaranteed probably to this day that ad sold more.
Well, what I love about that story is one of the reasons we wanted to do this podcast the way it is, with a creative and a performance, is because we use those terms like a creative and a performance and a data and I think you need creative performance people, because everybody had that email metric.
Totally.
It takes creativity to look at that data differently.
Yeah.
And say like, oh, why don't we do this? And then to get that information and like, oh, this information's different than we expected. Why don't we do something different with it?
For sure.
And I think that is at the heart of the creativity, that you're not just looking for something artistic, but you're looking for those unique insights about the way people think and then ask some interesting what if questions about that.
Totally.
And it seems like what I love too is that you use the creative to kind of break through that sort of plateau. Because you also had other competitors coming in, you had Freshly Picked and some of the others that were piggybacking off of that.
Yeah.
And so you use the creative to kind of help the business break through that ceiling.
Totally. Well, that's what's cool about creative nowadays is we're a performance marketing agency. And so, back in 2017, I remember if you were having a bad sales day, you could change your audience and you would make more sales. That doesn't really work that way anymore. Really, the way to target your audience is through creative. Like, the way to stand out is 100% through creative. And
just the machine learning is quickly picking a rut for you.
Totally.
Like, if you don't spend enough in your first week,
Yeah.
it's picked a lane for you.
Yeah.
And if you don't have enough good data, you're in a bad lane. And so
100%.
how do you find a new lane? And we've just found it's through, hey, talk to people in a different way.
Yeah.
And it's not just one way that's going to work. You might need 5, 6
Yeah.
different ways of talking to people.
Totally.
to find
And what was cool about that, right? Like, a Freshly Picked came up, and they immediately they in general were just a bigger company because they had blown up from their shoes, and then they started entering the diaper bag space. And so when you are up against people who have more budget than you, you have to, and they did, you have to get really creative with how you solve the problem too, right? And so that was like part of that reason is like, let's start talking to customers and do research, and let's just put the money where their mouths are and see what happens. And so that's what I love about also, like, when it comes to creativity is I feel like oftentimes when you are running leaner and when your back is up against the wall, you don't have a lot of leeway to blend in.
Yeah.
And you start doing things that help you stand out a little bit more. And I thought that was really cool.
We were just talking about how success and money and being backed with a corporation kind of makes you lazy with creative.
Oh, 100%.
And there are few things that feed creativity more than constraints. Like, if I said, go make art, you can make whatever you want in the world, you're like, and nothing gets done. But I'm like, okay, you have this pencil, this book, and a rubber band.
Yeah.
Make something with, and you're like, okay, you start approaching it from a different angle and start saying, what's the most I can make out of these three things?
Totally.
Instead of everything in the world. And,
Yeah.
you know, the commercials that I hack on a lot are things that we just see over and over again from giant corporations. They're spending hundreds of millions on their ad spend.
Yeah.
And saying nothing to me.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's why I remember when YouTube first started becoming a big thing, and specifically in Utah, everybody I knew in production was like, well, that's not going to last. They're using cheap cameras. Like, viewers don't care if you're saying something or showing them something interesting.
Sure.
They don't care. Viewers don't ask what camera you shot that on.
Yeah.
There's like, whoa, did you see that guy that did the thing?
Right.
And, you know, hold the camera still. Make sure I can understand the audio.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
That's the most important thing.
For sure. Yeah, totally agree.
What are the trends that you're seeing in creative right now? We're obviously seeing a lot of UGC being created right now, but we're also seeing that kind of lends to like a higher degree of fatigue and rotation of assets.
For sure. Yeah, for sure.
What other things are you guys seeing and using at Bestie right now?
We're still, I mean, UGC is great, but there's a better time and a place for UGC. What we're recognizing with UGC is they tend to work better like down the funnel, right? When you're seeing somebody just using something for the first time, sometimes you ask yourself, why do I care? I don't really know what this is yet. Why do I care about why somebody's using it? So UGC still has a great time and a place. We use a ton of it. We love it. But a lot of things that we're starting to see is sometimes we work with smaller brands who are or brands that are big, but they are in a very saturated market. And so some of the things that we're doing right now is we are trying to piggyback off of what their bigger competitors who have more money, what they've done with their advertising, and to piggyback off of their brand name and to talk about why they might be better. So we're doing a lot of comparison. Differentiation, exactly. So that's working really well. Reaction videos are huge right now. I don't know if you guys are seeing this kind of trend where somebody sniffs something or somebody
listen to what this guy says.
Or somebody tastes something and it's, oh my gosh, or somebody watches something like that kind of stuff is really, really good for advertising right now. So
Almost
we do
like
a
split screen.
Yeah. You can do the split screen stuff.
Green screen.
Yeah, you can do like taste testing. You go to a college campus and have somebody try this new drink or this new whatever, and getting their initial reaction, especially if your like message is, hey, we taste better or something, something like that. So reactionary stuff has been really good.
I wanted to pick up on the first point that you're saying though, about going after, if you're in a crowded space, looking at what your competitor's doing, and it is really hard to be the front runner. And I love finding clients that are in second or third place.
Totally.
Because I think it's easier for them to take risks and take big swings.
Yep.
And whoever's first has kind of plowed the road for them.
Totally. They've educated the market, right?
They've educated the market, right? The first bet in the box companies are barely, like Casper almost imploded and they got purchased. And,
totally.
And Tough to Needle they're not on my radar anymore.
Right, yeah.
But that allowed Purple to kind of leapfrog into the space.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
All of those companies now we're seeing who the survivor will be, but the first ones that led the way do a lot of that heavy lifting and then
100%.
come in after. But I also think that creates creative opportunity. Because all you need to have now is people are convinced that we need this new thing. You just need to have a unique voice about it.
Totally.
Or have a line in the sand.
What's interesting about this, I was talking to my team about it, a strategy that we've seen before, but I've never seen it replicated or done to this level of success. Everybody's heard of Athletic Greens.
Totally.
Right? They're the number one. They're that leader, right?
Yep.
There was a founder I was speaking to who runs a competitor. Nobody's ever heard of this brand, really. They're not doing any type of creative advertising. They're not on Meta, nothing like that. But they grew from 0 to 20 million in 2 years, and we've never heard of them.
Yeah.
And it's all from this piggybacking, the comparison strategy.
Yeah.
So I got off the call with him and I was shocked because I kind of put my foot in my mouth and I said, well, I'm making some assumptions about if you go from 0 to 20 million in this climate, you're probably doing meta, you're doing all these different things, right? To try to stand out from Athletic Greens.
Yeah.
And he kind of just sits back and he smiles and I'm like, what? And he said, it's all just through Google pay-per-click. And I'm like, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So I did some digging and
Yeah.
I don't want to like call out what the brand is.
Sure.
So I won't,
Sure.
you
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
can go find
Yeah.
out what it is.
Yeah, I know.
But all
Like
the
search Athletic Greens.
all,
Yeah,
you'll
exactly.
see it. All he does, they set up a website. Looks like a third-party website. It's not their Shopify. It's
Yeah.
not their brand. And they had, I think it looks like his wife and his kids.
Yeah.
And they had like it looks like a blog page, and they just ranked all the competitors, right? And they went through in really long form detail. Like they have photos of them testing, like taste testing all the different greens powders in the space. And of course, their brand is number one.
Sure.
Right?
What?
Yeah.
What? Now, what's
surprised?
interesting
Yeah.
is that all the links go directly to the competitors. They're not affiliate links. They're not trying to soak off any money. So they are, but all their pay-per-click is running to this page, not to their site at all.
Sure.
And then it links to their site.
So as people are typing in something like best greens or
Best
something
yes,
like that.
best. Yes, that's exactly right. I'll let you do your own research.
Yeah.
But yes, that's right. And I was shocked to see that it was doing that well. So I think there's so much potential when you have someone that is doing the big heavy lifting for you in terms of educating, especially if it's a new product category. And and you know, if you're in sort of a commodity space where it's, let's be honest, you know, usually food or CPG or whatever, it's there's not a ton of differences between, you know, you have packaging and you have branding, you have a little bit of taste or whatever, but there's not a ton of differences. And so if you can have somebody go through and just create, you know, I told this to Jay at Pillow Cube, and I think he might start doing it. Like just any space that you're in, low hanging fruit on that performance side where there's a lot of brand awareness already created for you, you know, taking advantage of a strategy like that. I was
100%.
I loved it. That's how his whole business is built off that one landing page.
So smart.
I love that as a tactic, but like he's calling us for a reason, and it's probably because he's hit a plateau. Right?
Oh, he didn't call us. This was
okay.
But I agree. Absolutely. That was why I said you have to be on
because
Meta.
the other guys are doing 100 or 200.
Well, totally, there is a
It's like
plateau.
percent.
You can't go past. I was shocked he even got to 20 doing that. But hey, that's an easy landing page to pick up 3-4 million a year in top line. Like,
Well, yeah,
that's awesome.
you can't. You know, I remember having a manager one time when I was like in my early Google days who were like, let's spend more money in Google. And I just remember being like, I can't. I can only spend as much as people are searching for these
volume.
topics,
Yeah.
you know? So like we're tapped out of spend.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing there, right? Like a Google or something like that can get you 20 million is huge when you're, especially not when you're
huge,
spending a
yeah.
dime in advertising outside
Right.
of Google. Like that's awesome, especially in that competitive space. But yeah, like eventually you hit a plateau and you have to start creating your own awareness.
Those
and,
categories are rare that you can make that happen. To your
100%.
point, yeah.
We have a client who I'm not going to mention their name or category, but it's a very competitive, large category, and had a falling out with Google. They just, because of the ACH payment, they don't want to pay ACH.
Yeah.
But they are driving so much in organic interest, they shut off all their Google ads last
way.
3 months, and they've increased by 30 million in annual recurring revenue.
Really?
Yeah, and they're not doing much in paid advertising. But he's like, you know, but what they are doing is they're driving people to search for them.
Sure.
They're like, we were taking our marketing team was taking the wins for the high ROAS.
Yeah.
But it's just because the sponsored link was one above our organic link, and so
Right. Yeah.
like I can say we've got a 7 ROAS.
Yeah.
But we decided to put that money in rewards for our customers.
Totally.
So we're going to try to get referrals and stuff like that.
That's
So-
cool. Yeah. More product sales, more product,
Yeah.
right?
So when you walked in today, I asked you a question, and we thought this might be a good question. It's interesting because we can see how elections affect media outlets.
Yep.
You can see, I think, how it affects creative. I think most brands are staying away from any mention of it. I think the opinions are still as strong, but not as many people want to have that argument in public
Yep.
right now. But more to the point, I've been telling people like, hey, CPMs are just going to go up for a little bit.
Yeah.
So you're just going to have to tighten your belt because you really want to be there. But I specifically asked like, hey, are you tracking swing states? Like, are brands able to sell anything in Pennsylvania right now?
Yeah.
Because so much political money is going in and buying up all the inventory of time there.
Totally.
What are you seeing there, and how does it relate to Black Friday?
So the answer, well, 2023 to 2024 to 2023 CPMs are just up. Like they are about 30%, election year or not. Okay. Since July, I think, I can't remember if it was June or July that I last ran this. But when we look at over like 120 different stores that are all very different varieties, from 6-figure businesses to 7 to 8 to 9, it fits the mold. And since July, they're up like 30%, and they're up from from September to October, like another 20, right? And things are going up really, really high, especially in the last 2 weeks we've seen it. Okay. That's just across, when you just look at CPMs and you're just looking at United States CPMs. Okay.
Yeah.
When you just pull in the 7 swing states, yeah. Right.
Sure.
They change sometimes, right? Yeah. You know?
Yeah.
But like I'm actually not going to say it because I'll probably forget one of them. They'll be like, this guy's stupid. But I know the swing states. I've done it. You're up 50%, an additional 50% in those swing states.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's huge.
It's almost
no
100%
inventory.
year.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
For year over year, it's like 110%.
It's like I would just sorry, Pennsylvania, you're not getting pillow cubes this year.
Yeah. Now, the goodish news for most brands, and now it just depends on the size you are, a lot of the swing states are not massive states that are the big
population
buying,
centers,
huge population. So that's like Meta generally when you're doing broad advertising. If you're not messing around with geo and you're in the broad space, it's not really going to put and dump a ton of money over into Pennsylvania, into North Carolina, into Wisconsin, into Georgia, right? Your inventory is going over to places like California, New York, Texas, Illinois is a big
That's why I say sorry, not because I'm going to pull back the ad spend. It's just the algorithm's going to see there's no inventory.
Yeah,
there.
exactly.
So as it spreads it out across the country.
Yeah.
And for the most part, strategically, I like to view ads as like, show this to everybody in America. It's the cheapest ad unit.
Yeah.
Right. So just naturally, it's just not going to make it there
For sure.
if you're launching a new brand. And it's been a little bit challenging for a lot of e-commerce brands. If you're not in beauty, if you're not in...
It's been a lot of it challenging. In fact, I feel like, I was talking to Jay, our Pillow Cube founder, and he's very well connected into the community, and he's talking about how many D2C businesses are going under. And I think, just in the climate, we've had sort of a poor economy. We've had increased CPMs, and people are kind of, tightening their wallets, and they're not making those impulse buys and, as much as they were. And so I think that there's going to be a big opportunity where a lot of these brands, they're sort of, for the last year and a half, they've been doing everything they can to stay afloat. And now they're finally hitting that wall where it's like, we either hit the pause button or we just shut down. Right.
100%, yeah.
And so I think what's going to happen is not only is there going to be post, November 5th-ish, there's going to be a lot more ad inventory from not having the election. But I also think some of these brands that just haven't been able to quite make it, haven't had that good foundation for the last year and a half, are going to go under as well and stop spending. Yeah. And there's going to be even more opportunity for Black Friday in December and January this year than there usually is.
Well, my big concern, and I think you alluded to this, and you can expand on this, is they're like, okay, we need Black Friday to save us. So let's not spend any money right now, and we'll spend it all on Black Friday. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, if you don't load the gun in October, it will not go off in November. Yeah. And so they're expecting similar fourth quarter numbers, but I'm like, if you're saving it up. So what was that you were kind of lining out like the Black Friday success, what you see about September, October.
I generally say like, tell me how your September and October went from how aggressive you were. Not necessarily how like good your acquisition was, but how aggressive you were. And I'll let you know how your Black Friday is going to go. Like that's generally how it's going to be. And so a lot of people, you can jump in, if you're a Shopify user listening to this, like you can jump into your cohort analysis, look at 2023, look at 2022, and you will always see that. Do you guys know what I mean when I say cohort analysis? Mm-hmm. You will see
you
that.
Just added that. Thankfully.
Yeah, I know, right?
You're looking at the people that
used to be just Lifetimely, and now you got
exactly. The group of customers
who bought within a specific month. And if you break that down by sales, total sales, you will see that people in October, the very next best month for cohort of October is the November purchasers, right? Yeah. You will also see people who buy in November also buy again in November at a much, much higher ratio too, meaning the people who bought before Black Friday in November, when they see the sale, they'll do it again. So one of the things that I'm telling people, and this might be a part of the question that you're alluding to, and if not, feel free to cut me off. We've been through Black Fridays, when we weren't using the cohort analysis in Shopify, we were using Lifetimely, and we would pull this data because it was very similar data. What we realized was generally what people are doing for Black Friday in November is usually one of three things. Okay. Either you're just doing your traditional Black Friday, which is Black Friday through Cyber Monday. And then you might have somebody who might do it a day before. They might say, hey, we're going to extend it a day, right? You do that kind of
special
fun, gimmicky marketing stuff
Everybody
that
does it.
everyone does, right?
Yeah. And
Holy
never
cow,
works.
you never knew we were going to do
It
this.
never works unless it's like your thing that you do every year.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Like,
So you're going to do that, right? You're traditional. That's what most people do. Okay. Then you have people who say, why don't we just run a sale the entire month? Like, let's just call it Black Friday month. That was really, really huge in 2021 when everyone's inventory got put on hold, and then they got all the stuff that they were supposed to be selling like
iOS 14
May,
hit.
June, July, August. Yes. And so they almost like had no choice. Like, we just have to make November an entire sales month, right? Because we got to get rid of
we gotta get
inventory
cash
because
and-
we are
yeah.
so, we have no cash flow, right? And so those have been like the two things that I generally see a lot. And then over the last 2 years, we've tested this model, which is, what if we do a sale? Because over the last few years, people are now accustomed to getting sales earlier. It's not weird to have a Black Friday sale on November 11th or November 5th or November 2nd. That's not a weird thing anymore.
Right.
What if brands pretend like their Black Friday sale is a 2 to 3 day sale from the 9th to the 11th? Now, I'm telling people a little bit later now with the election stuff, maybe it started on the 11th or something like that, or the 12th. But you go 2 or 3 days and you just call it your Black Friday sale. 30% off, 40, whatever you want to do.
But then you go again.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you do that, and then you go again over Black Friday time, okay? But the only difference is because you don't want to make people upset by saying like, let's say you did 30% off site wide, and then you go 35%, then you're going to piss all the people who bought here. So you do the same thing, but to make it just a little bit more, to add a little bit more FOMO, is you do like a gift with purchase on anyone who spends over $100, $200, whatever your metric is, right? With your AOE, okay? The reason why I love that, the reason why it's been so wildly successful, is it hits 3 different people, okay? So you get the early birds who buy and who are like, oh shoot, I better hurry and do this. Like, I don't want to miss it. Like, just in case they're not going to do a Black Friday sale this year, this is their Black Friday sale. I'm going to buy. Okay. And then what happens is you have a bunch of people who like start to get a little worried and regret that they didn't buy. Like, oh, I'm waiting for Black Friday, but I didn't do it.
They get that they've missed it.
Shoot,
once
did
already.
I miss it? Oh, shoot. So that gift with purchase really bodes well for those people who had the FOMO, who missed out, and they're like, oh, shoot, I messed up, okay? So you get those people who missed the sale, the second round, who are stoked out of their mind to get it.
Yeah.
You hit the people who were just planning and prepping for that normal time, but you get this third market, which is the people who bought on the early sale, regretted that they didn't spend more
Didn't
money,
get more, yeah.
that come back
Gosh,
Or
and
thought of
buy
an
more.
extra person to buy.
And now
for.
there's a gift.
How
So-
often does that happen? That happens with me every time I buy
I should
something
get that
new
for some-
on
that
a
was
deal.
a good idea. I should get it for
Exactly.
somebody else.
Yeah. Like for example, like I bought these pants and fell in love with these pants, and I was like, why didn't I buy? I bought them on like 30% off on a Memorial Day sale.
Yeah.
But they were such a different vibe for me at the time that I like didn't want to like
Yeah.
jump into
I'm not
it.
going all in on
Yeah,
that.
I'm like, hey, I usually don't wear something
Test
as
it out.
baggy as this, and then I bought it, and I was like, these are the most comfortable pants. I never want to wear anything else. They're expensive. I wish I would have bought 6 pair. Now, if they would have hit me with like another offer, I would have immediately bought 5 more pairs. I mean, immediately, you know. And so that's why we're talking to a lot of our clients to do.
Yeah.
Is we love that. The other thing that you get with that earlier sale, theoretically, it's not always, you hopefully get some cheaper CPMs too,
Yeah.
right? When
Yeah,
you're gonna
if
mess
you-
with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you always have to be thinking about your bottom of the funnel over the holiday, but you've got to be filling it up.
100%.
So, like a local brand here, Minky Couture, what they do is, I think theirs is usually on the 4th. They call it their customer appreciation sale.
Yep.
So their whole thing is that early sale is for their loyal
loyalists,
customers,
yep.
and they have like a white glove service if you go into the store,
Yep.
and it's the sale plus a little bit of white glove.
Sure.
But it's their same Black Friday sale.
Totally.
But because it's a narrow window, I think you open the window and close it again, and you create
Yep.
that FOMO.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I think thinking about where that window is going to be is tricky this year.
Changes
Election
the
on the
things with the
5th,
election. Yep.
depending on the
Then you got a
stability
weekend, and
afterward.
yeah, it's
One thing
still-
we've done is I think Prime really Day pioneered this by creating their own Black Friday and creating. I think it's really great to figure out a slow sales season and have your own holiday.
Yeah.
And I think that could be any time in this window.
Yeah.
It could
for
be
sure.
earlier, but Pillow Cube, we knew roughly when we started the company.
Yeah.
We created a birthday.
Yeah.
And it was it's one of our biggest sale days of the year.
For sure.
Do big sale, big discount.
And it's in the valley.
It's in the valley somewhere.
Yeah.
And it's
It's
roughly
in that,
around
it's in that
when
like,
we created it.
it's in that
And
like
it was
June month or something like that.
Yeah,
let's
like the
just-
4 peaks, and you pick the lowest, and you're trying to increase sales in that.
Well, 'cause it's easy to dominate the conversation on a Thursday when nobody's talking about anything.
Yeah, for sure.
So we're like, let's, and if you get the first bite at the wallet, you're more likely to get the second bite,
Yeah, for sure.
A lot of stuff is lining up
Yeah, 100%.
for that. So you guys are more like on the same page as far as you're both performance people and, and stuff like that. So we'll get to that. Do you have other things that you want to
Curious, yeah, I'm curious what you're seeing. So I ask this question a lot, and I wonder if you have like a way that you recommend. So as an agency, and you guys do you guys do your own creative production for your clients?
So we do not produce anything.
Yeah.
We post.
You're deploying it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like if one of,
Do you have designers and stuff? They're doing stills and
do
stuff
some
like that?
staticky stuff.
yeah,
whatever.
well, so what would happen is like we'll just take all the content a client might get. So whether it's, hey, we had a client that worked with you guys and we cut your ads 19 different times, right? And used them over a 2-year span. That was really, really good. So that's what we do. So we just like retake already produced stuff that either other creative professionals like you guys or in-house they did it.
Which is why we do
and
long form, because
we
you can
redesign. Yeah, you
cut
can
it
cut it
a
up like
lot of-
crazy. Yeah, we turned that thing in. It was a 3-minute video. We took it into a 15-second, a 30-second, a 60-second.
Yeah.
So that answer your question to understand more what we do? Yeah.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. Yeah. So one of my questions is, we're seeing that ads fatigue a lot faster. You need a lot more content.
Yep.
And so one of the big questions a lot of founders are kind of getting into is when they're thinking about their, forecasts, and they're thinking about how much to budget for ad spend. Now a lot bigger sort of piece of the puzzle than it ever has been is how much should we spend on creative
Oh,
production?
100%.
And you as an agency that, are like so many agencies where, you really have to get the brand to buy into creating enough content for you guys to deploy in your ad accounts. So when you're having conversations with them, are you, talking to them about the forecast in terms of, ad spend, but then building in, hey, here's how much content we're going to need based on how quickly it's fatiguing. And I guess, how do you guys think about that? Do you have some kind of, are you giving them math? Are you giving them, just sort of a baseline idea? And I ask everybody this, and it's sort of like, we just, when we need it, we go produce more.
Yeah.
Instead of sort of thinking about it more like, okay, when we're forecasting ad spend, we also have to forecast how much we're going to invest into.
Totally. Yeah. The answer is we do 100%. Now, the longer answer is, depending on the client, it depends on what they're going to work with you on, right?
Yeah.
To be able to do it. So sometimes we're not going to waste our time if they're not willing to, there's
Not
just
bought
some,
into
yeah. There's some clients that you just have that like, I don't want to say are on the back burner, but you just know that they're they're totally fine with where their ad spend is. They like where their business is at. They're not really trying to scale and grow. And we have a few people like that, and that's totally fine, right? But we 100% do this. So what we'll do is we'll take like a subset or a cohort of some ads, and we'll say, hey, this is what your baseline, for example, let's just say like cost per click. Okay. Cost per link click looks like. And then this is what your like highest cost per clicks are. Like this is, and this is what your lowest cost per clicks are. If you were to create more content that fits in this lower area and you were to be able to bring this down by X amount, this is how valuable this is. So we would back it into, this would essentially represent $10,000 a month in ad spend that you could efficiently spend. It's as if you had added additional $10,000, which is $10,000 more in CPMs and clicks, et cetera, et cetera. So what we'll do with some people, depending on how much budget they have, how bought in they are, we'll even take that budget out of our performance budget. So if they're not about to, let's say
asset, they'll get better.
Exactly. So let's say,
and then they'll be able to spend more.
100%. So let's say somebody's spending $100,000 a month. We'll go to them and say, hey, we need more content in order to scale at this time of the year. Can you do that for us? If they say no, then we'll say, take $10,000 from what is going to be this budget and go put that into a production or whatever that might be, so that you can then funnel that in. Or if they're a very heavily UGC seeding company, we'll say, go take $10,000 worth of product and go seed this so that we can have X amount more UGC. So it's a huge conversation that we're always having with people.
Yeah, I think because Creatively is a large ticket item, like, well, how can I afford it? But we're always saying, like, it's very expensive if this doesn't change your marketing at all.
Yeah, for sure.
But what Ben Perkins likes to say is like, oh, your videos would be really expensive if they didn't work so well for them.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
He's like, when they were doing 5 figures and now they're doing 7, like to be able to move those decimal points. And there's very little that can do that other than, I think even the days of having an influencer blow up your campaign are kind of gone. Like with our ice cream brand, we had, the woman that broke the internet and her sisters posted about our ice cream.
Yeah.
We saw a blip for a couple days.
Yeah.
And that was, it was fun.
Yeah.
That was it. And you can't. So I went to a conference, there's a bunch of marketers, and every young brand, they're like, what should we do? Like, go send your thing to a bunch of influencers. And I'm like, $600 in ad spend, you can be in front of 200,000 people. Make a good piece of content.
Totally.
Invest in it.
Yeah.
Invest in your product.
Yeah.
And as much as I agree, I bag on UGC a lot. It can do so much right now, and it has a role in your funnel. But what I like to say is I don't want to trust somebody in sweats to determine the voice of my brand.
Yeah.
And you can't build your brand. And we were just talking about, I think you can, a good ad should haunt people.
Yeah.
In a good way, that you're living in their brain.
Yeah.
Rent free.
Yeah, for
when they're
sure.
falling asleep and they're thinking about that one moment.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's the moment the spaghetti hit that bag.
Yeah.
That's what haunts people. They're like, yes, I
For
have
sure.
that problem. And that's what I call it, the itch.
Yeah.
We talked about that when I was on yours.
Yeah.
And that itch stays in your brain until you can scratch it. And this is the only product that can scratch it. Nobody else has this faux leather liner that I can wipe out. This is the only way to scratch it. So.
I think to Damian's point too, one other question I'd have for you and how you think about this, because I deal with this a lot with our clients. It's sort of, you run into certain brands that are very performance focused.
Yes.
What's my ROAS today, every hour or whatever. And then they're only running UGC, they're only running statics. And it's hard to sort of even have the conversation with them about a creatively type of a video. Because they're so focused on just the day-to-day performance.
They're focused on today, right?
Yeah, but they hit this diminishing return. They hit this ceiling. Like I can't, like you said with Google, I'm limited to the number of search results.
Yeah, for sure.
Meta, when you're only running bottom of funnel ads, you're sort of just scraping the bottom of the funnel already.
Yeah.
Meta's so smart.
Yeah.
So how do you think about kind of helping the brands that you work with understand the value of those types of assets that'll live rent-free in someone's, brain, but won't show up on the attribution models
for sure
that they're having a direct impact right then.
Totally. I mean, well, we oftentimes talk to people about it in 2 different ways. We'll talk about bigger productions like what you guys do, but then we'll also talk to people about how they need to just invest in the organic side of content creation, because I'm a big believer that the organic side can do very similar things that the bigger branded videos can do, right? At the end of the day, the organic and these bigger branded campaigns that you're trying to do, it may not get the purchase tomorrow or today, I should say, but it's going to get people to start searching. And, I talk to Alex MacArthur all the time, and he says this thing where he says, sales always follows search. Right.
Yeah.
Which is like one of my favorite lines. And so we talk to people about that all the time. Like, if people aren't searching for you, then eventually you'll hit the diminished return. So you have to find better ways to get people to start thinking about you outside of the 1-day click attribution window, right? I saw the ad here, I bought today or yesterday or the next day, right?
One thing I say a lot is your biggest competition is not that other person in your space, it's ignorance.
Yeah. Oh,
it's
for
the
sure.
200 million people in America that have no idea that you exist.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, all the time a movie that will come out with like hundreds of millions in marketing. I'm like, hey, hon, should we go see this tonight? She's like, oh, I didn't even know that was out. Like, and I've seen it everywhere, but she didn't.
Yeah.
And I think that's 20 times as true for brands.
Yeah.
They're trying to do what this other brand is doing, like, but just help people understand. No, I think though, one of the difference I feel is like organic, there's a long tail to it where like paid UGC there isn't.
Sure.
And it's almost the opposite with paid. There may not be as long of tail because if you stop spending, it's done. But I can make people watch it where I can put it in front of 200,000 where organic, I have to build slowly getting people. And I
Totally.
only get the people that I've already gotten. And there's some selection bias. Like maybe they liked what you're doing because you're a handsome guy or a pretty
Sure,
girl.
sure.
And not that they care about your product.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
So,
We actually just talked to a client that we were really excited about and really far down the road with them about doing a big production with us, and they were really excited. And then they built their brand all on the organic side.
Yeah.
So they started, just doing TikToks and they blew up, right?
Yeah.
So now they're kind of getting into paid. They're like, okay, we want to do it right. We want to go with a creatively video.
Yeah.
We've got $200,000 to spend. What can we get? Right?
Yeah.
And so we're really excited to work with them. And then they got connected to Mr. Beast.
Okay.
Obviously, like the organic king, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, he said, "Oh, just keep doing organic, but
Yeah.
instead of being only on TikTok, you really should be on YouTube."
Sure.
Right? And so now they're kind of pulled into this conversation where they're going, "All right, we built our brand organically. We're not used to paid yet."
Yeah.
And it's exactly like what Damian said. Paid, you get the results right away.
Sure.
But you got to keep paying.
Sure.
Organic is that slow snowball.
Sure.
So they're kind of having this question of like, okay, if we've got 200,000 to spend, we can hire a couple of Mr. Beast guys and just start making ads on YouTube or start making videos on YouTube and have that slow snowball that eventually, might build. Or we can do an ad that we feel really confident in and just blast it out on paid.
Yeah.
And it's sort of trying to, give them the pros and cons of both. The other question that they sort of had was like the risk. Like any piece of creative is a risk, right?
Yeah.
But also the organic side is a risk because you don't know if anyone's going to watch it, right? And there's so many people doing
Totally.
it. So it's
Totally.
it's really, really interesting conversation.
Well, I mean, to me, the answer to that question is like, okay, the organic side is winning on TikTok or Instagram, let's say. So we're winning here. If you're winning on that platform organically, you're going to win on that platform paid. Like that's the formula is generally there, right? And so to me, the risk is so much less of putting that 200K into something that's going to be on the paid performance side of things. But then so that's what I would do is I would totally say, I mean, this is me not,
Yeah,
I don't work for Creatively, right? Obviously, you guys are going to
Performance
say
side,
that, right?
like,
Yeah.
Well, just.
But I'm a diehard organic guy too. Like I am always like I talk so much more organic than I do paid because what's happening is there's so many people who aren't willing to take the $200,000 leap and do more of these bigger branded stuff. They want to stay really, really low here, but they hit the diminished returns. And so to me, it's like either you got to go here or you guys got to buck up and create content and find ways to get people.
Yeah.
They're both really hard and really challenging.
But the in-between path is the one that doesn't work.
Yeah, for
I feel
sure.
like if you're doing organic, it's got to be inside. You've got to have a voice inside your company
Yep.
that's true to what you believe and who you are.
Yep.
And if you're paying somebody, you need somebody who understands that medium so you don't have to spend a year figuring it out.
100%.
With organic, it does take you,
Years.
even if you're like killing it on TikTok, the
YouTube's
pivot to
way
YouTube,
different.
Yeah, it's totally
way
different.
space.
But
First
what-
of all, it's short form versus long form. Even though shorts is big, it's huge. But yeah, it's there. You're right. There's so many nuances.
Yeah, but like, why not use like I said, the platform already. You're winning there. You're going to win paid. Like that's just I've never seen it not happen.
Well, because
I've
you
never,
know your consumers are there.
yeah, I've seen
And so you
people.
know there's more consumers that are there that you're not reaching with your organic.
Yeah, I've seen people build a foundation on paid and not be able to do organic all the time. I've never seen people be able to do organic and then not win paid. Personally, it's never happened.
Yeah.
But I have seen people struggle to go from one organic to the next platform, thinking that the strategy is the exact same.
Right.
Now, if they're going to be hiring these Mr. B style people, sure, they might have better experts who are going to be helping them, but why not go big on the creatively performance side and then use that as insurance money for the YouTube style side of things? Like that's the direction I would go.
Yeah, well, because the thing is, you're paying Mr. Beast guy, but unless you get him, it's not his producers that have his special sauce.
Yeah.
People aren't, you get 3 tiers down that company, it's not the same thing. I'm a big believer in organic, and I think there's, I have some strategic things that wouldn't involve us that I think this company could do. But it's an interesting, and what I preach again and again is you need to think about your content as an ecosystem.
Yeah.
And so you need to have different pieces doing different things.
Yeah.
And know it, and you will naturally get one and start winning in one area, and that you should never lose focus of that.
No.
But then start thinking about, well, what's the best complement to it?
Yeah.
And usually the trap is kind of what I said is if you're like, well, it's a no-brainer to do the same organic and then do it in Instagram, like, no, those algorithms are so different. It's
Totally.
not going to be the same thing.
How are they above or are they under like a 250 million mark?
Under. They're like 5.
Yeah.
5 to 10 million. Yeah.
Dude, like I tell people, like if you're at like under 100 million, you really don't even need to do anything more than Meta.
Yeah.
Like, you
Well,
know,
I don't
I
know
mean,
if you've
and
heard-
Google obviously, because there's some search that comes with that, and you want to
Yeah.
capitalize on it. You might want to do branded stuff too, but like,
Well, it's like Phil
That's
Knight
just my
says,
thought, yeah.
unless you're doing 100 million, you don't have a brand yet.
yeah.
Like all the things that you worry about, your palette and your color.
And I even think that number's outdated, personally. Like,
Well, and Oreo just did an interesting test. I don't know if you follow Avilio Matos, he's an interesting packaging guy. They did a test about brand with box colors and seeing how far off they could get the brand box color without people noticing. And it was like almost infinite.
oh, I bet.
People don't care at all, but like every brand you've ever worked with, they're like, this fuchsia,
That's not on brand.
Pantone.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they're like,
Yeah.
that's not it.
It's so true. I mean, I do this all the time with,
Yeah.
but I do this all the time with, there's a few brands here in Utah that are these $100 million plus brands, that I won't say any of them, but I will, we have clients all over America, and I'll always, do you know, I might wear some of their products. I'll be like, have you heard of this? Like, never heard of them.
That's so
You're
funny.
like, yeah.
That's so true.
In Utah,
Little bubble.
Yeah.
they're the biggest name in the world,
Right.
but no one's ever heard it. So
100%.
whether you were blue or green or purple or whatever, like no one's
Once
gonna
again,
know.
your biggest competitor is ignorance.
Ignorance.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah.
Loved having you on. And
Appreciate it.
well, I hope I'm a fan of Bestie. I hope one day we can be real besties. And
I think we're there. We've already gotten tacos together.
That's true.
You were on my podcast, and I'm
Yeah.
on yours. I mean,
Speaking of that, where can people find your podcast? What's it called?
podcast is called The Unstoppable Marketer. YouTube, Spotify. It's on every Apple.
it's
Yeah.
great.
Awesome.
A lot of
you find
fun
it.
conversations and
Yeah.
great actionable marketing.
Yeah, very
tips.
D2C actionable stuff. Yeah, for sure. You get some hot
Right up
takes
my
from
alley.
us too.
I love
but-
talking shop.
Yeah, we're
Great.
shop
All right.
talkers for sure.
Thank you. We'll see you guys next time on Totally Radvertising Podcast.
It's totally rad. It's totally rad.
Join us every week right here on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, or wherever you listen to stuff for your pods.